3, 2, 1. Imagine we're underwater. Just humor me for one moment. Close your eyes and really picture it. You're in a body of water somewhere in the Caribbean, off the coast of Curaçao. That's my wife. She's trying to show you something. Although you can't quite hear what she's saying, her excitement is unmistakable. The water is crystal clear. A few fish meander past, their scales shimmering like jewels. But what's most striking is its incredible visibility. It seems to stretch at least 100 feet below. In that moment, you notice a sea turtle gracefully descending, and you are compelled to follow. We're now 80 feet underwater, about the height of an 8-story building. When you see something right out of a sci-fi movie, it's gray and sleek with round edges. It looks like some sort of multi-armed sea creature or a spaceship. As you approach, you notice it has windows. Through them, you can see people inside, eating, sleeping, and working as if they were on the surface. This is the dream of Fabien Cousteau, and in a few years' time, it may very well be a reality. He's building an underwater research station in an undisclosed location in Curaçao's waters. But today, Fabien is here with us, ready to take us on an incredible journey full of surprises we never saw coming. I'm Michael Motometti, and you're listening to No Fixed Address, the world's most extraordinary people, presented by Matador Network. 2 years ago, I quit my job as a marketing executive and decided to travel the world with my wife.
Hi, I'm Vanessa.
And our baby daughter. We sold our home, our cars, packed a bunch of clothes into a small suitcase, and now live in a new country every single month. And something I've come to love about living on the road is the people I meet. So I decided to start a podcast. That way you can meet them too.
Wow, you really took me there.
Right? That was my all my radio voice training that I've done in my past life.
Is this something you do without me knowing?
Well, I just think my whole life people have been telling me that I have such a face for radio that I feel like this was my time to shine.
They say that to you? Because you do have a really nice voice for radio. But
I know, but that's implying that I'm ugly, just so you know.
I know, that's why.
Just making sure.
I was standing up for you.
But wow, my God, Fabien Cousteau. I mean, I felt like I was just like sitting in front of a living legend. His grandfather invented scuba diving.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, one of my favorite movies in the world is based off of his grandfather.
Life Aquatic.
Life Aquatic. I mean,
Bill
we all
Murray.
know that movie.
Anybody who hasn't seen it.
Mr. Wes Anderson out there. Come to find out, we did tackle that a little bit in this conversation, which I felt like he was a little disgruntled about, but we'll get into that. I mean, I thought that was pretty hilarious, to be honest.
I don't think so. I bet they all watch it as a family and laugh their butts off.
He's very creative, very well-spoken.
That's what I liked most about him, and I got that from just reading about him before even meeting him, that he's not afraid of ideas. He's not afraid of crazy. He's not one of those people that are like, oh, that's never going to work. He's like a dreamer, a big dreamer.
Yeah, I love people like that. I mean, I consider myself pretty crazy. I consider myself a dreamer. I consider myself someone who never, ever settles and lives without regrets. But my God, when you sit in front of a guy who's been inside of a shark submarine and swam with sharks, you kind of get humbled a little bit. You know what I mean?
Well, I don't know if you know this, but his grandpa, he dreamt of building Atlantis. So building an entire society, community, civilization underwater. So Fabien's really starting that.
What did living on the land do to this guy? Something has scarred this man.
I do want to talk about Curaçao because that's how we got connected to Fabien in the first place. He spent a lot of time there. That's where he's building Proteus, which is this underwater space station of the ocean. And I put together a list because I'm hell-bent on convincing you to go to this island. You've got to go to Barber Market on a Sunday.
Nobody's going to know where that is, though. You can't ask. People don't even know where it is when you ask them.
If you type in barber market on Google, it'll come up. It'll say barber marché.
But I mean, but it was like, we would ask people, even locals would be like, what the heck are you talking about? Like, this is off the beaten path shit.
It is, but it's so cool. It's local food. All of these ladies from around town get together and make their favorite dish. The next one, Perunchis.
Oh, my favorite.
Perunchis is a small restaurant on the water on a strip where the fishermen live. So it's all fishermen's houses. And this is basically
And
a
again,
house.
it's owned by a couple brothers and sisters. Mostly this one matriarch. I forgot her name, but she's a powerful lady. Right?
They call her Perunchi.
Or her name's Perunchi. That's what it was. And she's like, as soon as you walk in, you'll know who it is.
It's delicious, and you're supporting the fishermen there, so it's cool. Tugboat Beach, way out there again. You need
but
a car.
such a great snorkeling experience. Or scuba.
And
I
a whole
felt
day.
like you could just snorkel. I wouldn't waste the time on the scuba, to be honest. It was so shallow.
But they have an artist on site from like 9 to 5 p.m. every single day, and he's there to teach you how to paint so you can get drinks and paint with him, make a really nice artwork.
I mean, obviously, you can tell that we absolutely fell in love with Curaçao, as we do with all the places that we visit. But this has a little special place in our heart. But now, to the man, to the myth, to the legend, Fabien Cousteau.
Fabien Cousteau, you've already heard a little bit about him. He's an ocean conservationist, a documentary filmmaker, and an aquanaut. For anybody that isn't familiar with that term, an aquanaut is an undersea explorer who lives underwater for an extended period of time, kind of like an astronaut, but in the ocean. Fabien famously spent 31 days in an underwater laboratory back in 2014. And today he's working to build a brand new state-of-the-art research station in Curaçao. You'll want to hear his vision of the future, why ocean exploration matters, and finally his thoughts on Life Aquatic, the Wes Anderson film that was inspired by his family.
Just so you know, this episode is sponsored by Guide Geek. If you're booking a trip, check out Guide Geek, a new way to plan travel. It's an AI chatbot built on OpenAI. But what's cool is that it's actually curated by human travel experts at Matador Network, the world's largest independent travel publisher. I've been using it for a while now, mostly on WhatsApp, but you can use it on Instagram Messenger too. I often ask for advice on what neighborhoods to stay in when I'm booking accommodations, or you can get a little deeper and ask how Anthony Bourdain would enjoy a specific city. It's amazing. Head to guidegeek.com to try Guide Geek for free and start planning your next trip. That's guidegeek.com to start planning your next trip with your newest AI travel assistant. Fabien, welcome to No Fixed Address. It's such a pleasure to have you on the show. Not an astronaut, an aquanaut.
Well, thank you, Michael. It's a pleasure to be here.
The first thing I really do want to talk to you about, and I think you're probably most excited about, if I'm not mistaken, is Proteus. What exactly is it?
Well, yeah, I've always wanted to build something like this just because I'd heard the past exploits of pioneers from yesteryear. And Proteus, in a nutshell, is imagine the International Space Station, but underwater. And it takes all the essence of what that means, putting a number of scientists and engineers and explorers in a confined extreme environment to live and work, in this case, underwater for weeks, months, possibly longer in an underwater city, if you will, or an underwater town. Essentially, it is a unified structure, but one that is what I would call modular, meaning that you can take and add and subtract pieces as needs be, just like the International Space Station. But instead of the space station, it's stationary because of the need for mid and long-term research in regional areas. So essentially, it's a house in a laboratory underwater, just a little more sophisticated.
Right now, the first location is in Curaçao, off the coast of Curaçao, correct?
Right.
Why did you pick Curaçao?
Well, for those who don't know where Curaçao is, it's the southernmost islands in the Caribbean, right off of South America, basically. The ABC Islands, as they used to be called, and C for Curaçao. Curaçao, it's a beautiful place. Wow. In today's world, when we're facing so many struggles with all the bad news. Curaçao has one of the few remaining accruing coral reefs in the entire Caribbean, meaning it's still recruiting coral, which is very unusual in this day and age with climate change related issues and so on and so forth. So we're really excited to have the privilege of being in Curaçao and installing this in the marine park. Curaçao is also basically a pinnacle. So the land part that everyone gets to enjoy when they go on vacation is the tip top of the pinnacle. And what that gives us is a great relief to have quite a variety of different study areas, from shallow water in the coral reef ecosystem, which has been very little explored in that part of the world, to much deeper areas in the mesophotic zone, where a lot of the cold water upwellings and the largest migration on the planet happens from deep water to shallow water, where all the critters at night come up towards the surface to feed. And so it really is a great target of opportunity for not only marine biology, but also testing all sorts of technologies, from life support systems, waste management systems, energy systems, right? Renewable energy systems, using this as an analog for live fire exercises for astronauts when they're about to go and colonize another planet. This is very much putting them in an extreme environment where the risks are real, but the proximity to help is a lot closer.
That's super interesting. So just instinctually, obviously I read about it and we're talking about it, but I always considered this project mainly to do with understanding the ocean better, but it seems like there's a lot more uses out of it, even understanding space better, or how to interact with space as a human being.
Yeah, I mean, inner space and outer space have a lot in common. And essentially, before you become an astronaut, you first have to become a scuba diver, because some of your training is underwater. So it's not just for astronauts, although certainly that is an amazing training ground for them, but it's also for testing all sorts of new technologies, learning more about our ecosystems that support us. I mean, the ocean is our life support system, and we've explored less than 7% of it to date. So it gives us a real unique opportunity that no other tool in the toolbox of ocean exploration gives us. An underwater habitat gives us access on a personal level to that environment that not a submarine, not an AUV, autonomous underwater vehicle, not scuba diving from the surface or boat or whatever it does. It gives us that human technological interface on the final frontier of our planet.
It's funny that you say that, because one of the things that I always hear is space is this kind of the final frontier, and this idea of, it's romantic, I guess. I mean, not to say that water isn't romantic either, but there's something really easy to sell about space, right? This existential crisis that's within all of us, this beyond, right? But, the more I hear you speak and the more I read about you and what you do, and other oceanographers as well as in general, how do you guys communicate that? How do you communicate the importance of the ocean in comparison to space? It's fascinating.
Well, apparently very poorly. We have a terrible marketing arm. Certainly I love space exploration. Sign me up if we can explore the oceans of Europa and all that, as long as there's a two-way ticket. Because at the end of the day, ask any astronaut, what fascinates them so much about space, and what takes up a lot of their free time is staring back at this beautiful little blue oasis in space. It's a very unique planet, one that we take for granted. To your point, we look at space oftentimes, I think, subliminally, because we're trying to escape the mess that we've created on this planet, hoping for another planet that's even just as pretty and just as hospitable. But the reality is that, as much as space colonization is a cool concept, how many people are going up there, out of the 8.7 billion and growing? And the reality is that this is a really unique ecosystem, a really unique planet amongst the stars. And one that, like I said, I mean, we've taken ocean for granted, and we've barely dipped our toe into it. And that's really the essence of why we exist. Ask those space jockeys what they're looking for on other planets. They're looking for water. They're looking for that.
There you. By the way, that's your marketing right there. Hey, what are you looking for up there? Well, we got it down here too.
It's amazing. So, there's a lot of synergy between those two extremes, and of course some differences. But at the end of the day, we need to do a better marketing job on ocean for the general public, not for the experts. I mean, we all know what's going on out there, but I should say we know the basics. We want to know more. The average depth of the ocean is about 12,000 feet, with three-quarters or more than three-quarters being over 21,000 feet. So, we need to go deeper.
But let's go back to Proteus for a second and Curaçao. We just spent a month there, absolutely fell in love with the people, fell in love with the beauty of the place as well, too. Have you spent some time out there? Like, what's your favorite thing to do out there?
In Curaçao?
Yeah.
Gosh, there's so many things. Some of the favorite things that I get to do on the off times is having dinner in a new restaurant, or meeting the people of Curaçao, where we get to really immerse ourselves in some of the cultural aspects. And that's not just Curaçao. I just really enjoy learning from other people and that are different from me, that have lived different lives. And to me, that's really an enriching experience to be able to exchange. Little local restaurants on the waterfront that are run by, a single mother who's trying to make ends meet and just makes these amazing meals, from lionfish to, which are an invasive species in Curaçao or in the Caribbean.
This was probably like the coolest thing I've read about anybody in the last little bit since we've been doing this podcast. You created a shark that
I can't believe you're bringing this up.
Okay, no, like, let me just tell you how of a Ace Ventura Pet Detective fan I am. Okay, and so just these like childhood dreams of mine were coming true when I was reading this. Just tell our audience, like, tell me about this. Tell me I need to know everything. I really do.
Yeah, I mean, some people think I'm a little nuts, but most of the innovative approaches, both in science and otherwise, are about pushing the boundaries of the known. And the only way, at that point, I saw doing that, aside from highlighting the usual stuff of sharks breaching and chasing chum and things like that, which are artificial behaviors, or they're instigated behaviors, is to camouflage oneself as a shark. And some years back, I had the opportunity to live out my childhood Tintin fantasy. I don't know if you know the old cartoons or the comic book Tintin, but on one of them, Le Trésor de Rackham le Rouge, or I think in English it's Red Rackham's Treasure, Tintin and Milou, or Tintin and Snowy, got into a shark-shaped submarine that his scientist friend had built. And I thought that was a cool idea, and I decided to bring that to life and build a shark-shaped submarine to swim amongst great white sharks to see what they do when we're not around, right? To see what sharks do when human beings are not harassing them, and especially great whites, since that's kind of the poster child for everyone's fears. It was really fascinating when the submarine actually worked. Now, imagine what we call a wet sub, which is it's water inside and outside, right? So you have to go in with your gear, your scuba gear, in this case, a rebreather. And I'd say 4 times out of 10, I was in there repairing something, because as a prototype, anything that can fail will. And that in itself was more dangerous than the sharks. But it was really neat when it worked, and I was swimming amongst these sharks. I got to see some strange behavior that we've never seen before. Great whites are typically solitary animals, and when they're in proximity to each other, there's a hierarchy from junior to senior, and the matriarch, the largest female, is the apex of that pecking order. And so shark on shark interaction was really fascinating. I remember this one time we saw a 12-foot juvenile, I can't remember, I think it was a female, going after a piece of, I think it was elephant seal at the surface, and she was charging up, and this giant female, about 18, 19 feet long, just girthy babe, went and broadsided this junior, mouth open, everything, and just launched it out of the water. Didn't bite down, didn't kill it or anything like that, but just let it know where the pecking order was. Really neat stuff.
Wow. If you're enjoying No Fixed Address, the world's most extraordinary people, we know you'll enjoy Travel That Matters. This season, Travel That Matters is interviewing master chefs like Wolfgang Puck and Danny Meyer, the founder of Shake Shack. Wolfgang Puck talks about his culinary adventures, including the time he was presented with 120 pounds of camel meat, and delves into how his love for travel has shaped his innovative approach to blending local ingredients with international flavors. Danny Meyer explains how childhood travel experiences shaped his restaurant empire and explores the power of family travel, the culinary scene in New York City, and innovative trends in food. Step into the exclusive world of luxury travel on the podcast Travel That Matters and open the doors to top food, adventure, and experiences. Find Travel That Matters wherever you listen to podcasts. Talk about people calling you crazy, which I think is an absolute compliment, by the way. I was talking to Vanessa about this. Like, people my whole life have been telling me I'm nuts. My life decisions. But then I was thinking about your life and I'm like, dude, you're at another level. You know what I mean? Like, I might go and become an entrepreneur or, not want to get a 9-to-5 or travel the world for the last 2.5 years with my wife and my kid. And people are like, this guy's crazy. This is getting into a shark and swimming with the sharks as a shark. And then secondarily, let's also talk about something that you're also super famous, which is you spent 31 days living underwater. Mm-hmm. What was that like? What's it like under the sea?
Man. In one word, for me, it was paradise. For me, it was home. Now, I'm making light of it. It was extraordinarily difficult for many reasons, because you're segregating yourself from everything that you know on the surface. You trade up the access to the topside world and that comfort for living and working underwater in what was the last remaining undersea marine laboratory called Aquarius. Glorious 400 internal square feet where 6 of you get to bunk up.
Oh my God.
Or an apartment in New York City.
For 31 days?
Six
there was
of us.
6 with you?
Yeah, we were 6 together.
Oh my God.
In 400 square feet. And that includes not just the bunk room or the sleeping quarters, but the galley or kitchen, the working quarters, which was comprised of a couple of tables right next to the head, which is the bathroom. And our front door was just past that, after the bulkhead, where you have all your dive equipment and everything else that you need to go into the water. But because the pressure inside your house or inside your habitat is equal to the pressure outside the habitat, you can get in and out of the water whenever you want, as long as you want. And, with a little asterisk, of course. Essentially, the air is a little bit more syrupy because it's 3 times, in this case, it's 3 atmospheres or 20,000 millimeters under the sea. For those who don't speak metric, that's about 60 feet-ish. And 3 atmospheres, or 3 times the density of air that you're breathing now, presumably near sea level, gives you the ability to acclimate. Your body acclimates to those pressures really well.
Yeah, so basically you don't have any restraints from a discovery standpoint, a scuba standpoint. Like it's just like as if you're here. You go down to the elevator and you walk outside and want to discover something. The same thing happens when you're living under the water. And I think that's probably a huge kind of catalyst for your current project, right? Just to be able to...
It gives you the ability to see what else is out there as opposed to the hour limit. And that's really the magic, right? Being able to put a human being in that extreme environment for, I say infinite periods of time. Obviously, we get tired, we get hungry, we need to go to the bathroom, all that stuff. But essentially, for Mission 31, which is the mission you were referencing, we spent 31 days out of that 400 square feet and did over 3 years worth of science. And we're able to reach over 100,000 students live all over the world, in different parts of the world during that time, because we had better Wi-Fi at the bottom of the sea than my own apartment in New York City.
Yeah.
Crazy stuff, funny. Right? So So Zooms, all day long if you want, which is good and bad. There was some of that with the 24-hour live streams where, I mean, sometimes you want some privacy. And when you're diving 10 or 12 hours a day, you start getting a little, punch drunk, so to speak. And you need to turn the cameras off. But
if you guys can't tell by now, this man breathes and bleeds the ocean. And I do want to talk a little bit about your grandfather. Mm-hmm. You're the grandson of Jacques Cousteau, the legendary oceanographer, like a true pioneer. Tell me about those early years with your grandfather and your father. What was it like?
I was always dreaming about the next exploration because of my grandparents and my parents. My grandfather did invent scuba back in the early 1940s. He also built the first underwater habitats, the first underwater cameras for filmmaking, the first submersibles for scientific research. The list goes on and on. He helped Dr. Harold Edgerton at MIT with side-scan sonar. I mean, most of the things we take for granted today in ocean exploration were pioneered by those crazy people back then. And I love those crazy people because they were my teachers growing up. I scrubbed barnacles. As a kid, I did not appreciate that. Been scuba diving since my 4th birthday, on expeditions regularly since I was 7. And so summer breaks for me were under the hull, scrubbing those barnacles or painting the rails or, doing all sorts of tasks that really made me appreciate when you are in the farthest reaches of the world, you're so interdependent on each other as a small community on a boat to make sure that everything ran properly and you all were safe and helping each other, regardless of your job title. And, eventually I graduated to doing the graveyard shift at the helm, which scared the bejesus out of me every time because, 16, 17-year-old kid responsible for a 150-foot vessel and 27 crew members, white knuckling it the whole time. And this was modern technologies, and we had basic radar and back then and all that. And then finally, I got a chance to join the dive team and be part of these experiences that were mind blowing.
You were basically kind of just fully immersed. I mean, you had a little bit of everything. And the exploration, I think, was probably at the top of that, right? That was just the desire to explore. I mean, if it's in your blood like that, right? As an explorer, I could only imagine that it could possibly be about thrill or maybe understanding the unknown or even understanding ourselves better. What is exploration to an explorer like yourself?
I think that's a very, the answer is probably very individual, very unique for each person, because it's about pushing beyond the boundaries of the known and what drives you there. For me, it's not necessarily an adrenaline hit per se. I'm not bungee jumping out of a plane and then detaching myself to land on the top of another wing or something like that, or doing some other crazy thing. For me, well, I mean, I guess like you said earlier, crazy is the definition is very individual, right?
I mean, I didn't want to bring it up again, but that's okay.
Yeah, I guess sucks. Perspective, right? So for me, it's the curiosity that was shepherded as a child growing up and learning to ask questions about things that you don't know and really what drives you there. So pushing beyond that box of the known. And that's, like I said, very individual for the person who may be an accountant or an adventurer or a filmmaker or a business person, whatever it is that you love doing. It's about going beyond the comfort zone. A lot of times people love staying in their comfort zone because it's known, it's predictable. You can get from A to B, but I want to go from A to Q or A to Z. And I may never get there, but I want to keep pushing because that's how we learn. That's how we understand. That's how we appreciate all the things that scare us, the things that we're ignorant of. And whether or not you adopt what you've learned to your life down the road, you appreciate what that means and what that is. It's the only way that, culturally speaking, universally, we get to progress as a species. And I think that plays into all the underpinnings that we are, right, as a human being. And that plays into society, that plays into culture, that plays into science, that plays into engineering, that plays into exploring other planets.
I
For
think
us,
one of the things you said that's super powerful and resonated with me, and I bet with a lot of our audience as well too, is this idea of comfort and complacency. And I always get really scared after I'm comfortable for a while,
Mhm.
because I'm just like, what's happening? Death's around the corner, death's around the corner, and I just want to feel. And I think as an explorer, you guys are really at the brink of that, even more so than anybody else. I mean, because you're constantly searching. It's really a search, right? And I find that just super, super fascinating. And you're doing more than most. I mean, obviously the sense of wanting to be alive, but like, why do you do all this?
For our children,
For the future.
for the future. I mean, we take for granted why we're here as individuals. We don't even think about why we breathe, or the well-being that it feels to walk in the sand on a beach at a sunset, and how that makes you feel. Um, all those things that we take for granted are precious gifts. If you think about the universe, we are an unbelievable miracle, to be able to live, even just breathe, whether you're suffering or not. And the moments you're not suffering or having difficulties in life are just so precious. And to be able to give that gift to the next generation, to be able to have them explore things that are so unique to this planet, whether it's chasing a frog, or touching water, or playing in mud, and not having to worry about being toxic and all those sorts of things. Just those simple gifts in life. The joy that it brings to a kid, when you stare into their eyes. That's why I do it.
I love that, man. Wow. I got to go chase a frog now for sure. Like I'm just,
It's a lot of fun.
I mean, I ask a lot of individuals who we meet a lot of people who are on this podcast that are, they love the earth so much, and they dedicate their lives to ensuring, or trying to ensure that, it's going to be here for a long time. And surprisingly, most of the ones that we meet are very optimistic about the future. What about yourself?
What's for me in the future? My vision, of Proteus, which, if all goes well and continues to go well, will be executed in Curaçao by 2027. But it doesn't end there. It's about having a network of these habitats globally to be able to have a better understanding, a better finger on the pulse of oceanic health, so that not just experts or crazy adventurers like myself get to experience the knowledge that brings, and the experience that brings, but also to be able to enrich our future and breed a sense of realistic hope. Implement the solutions that all that information, all that data, all the new knowledge brings, to implement that in our everyday lives, whether we're on the ocean front or 1,000 miles away, so that we can live in more symbiotic relationship with this planet. So that brings hope to me, because I've seen a lot of young people, and this generation really, especially the younger you are, the more apt you are to this, is instead of falling into the status quo and building these walls of saying it's impossible or we're doomed or whatever, is the can-do attitude and rolling up our sleeves and getting it done. Because we know where we're headed if we don't do things, right? If we don't implement solutions. If we keep talking about the bad news only, we can only stand to gain from doing something different than what we've been doing. And so for me, the sense of hope is looking at the solution building that individuals and small communities are implementing in their local area or in the local ecosystem, and the success that's been having, whether it's marine protected areas or cutting down on single-use plastics, or the list goes on and on and on. There's simple things that we can all do to really contribute to a better tomorrow so that our future generations can benefit from those things that we've taken advantage of.
I think as individuals, we forget how much of an impact the small things that we do ourselves on an everyday basis will make. It's it's a compounding effect in reality, right? And if we think about it like compounding, I think it's way easier to recycle, right? Or make sure you're not using, plastics that are not good for the environment or whatever it may be. As we're nearing the end, I have to ask, because this is one of my favorite movies in the entire world. I need to know, were you guys excited about The Life Aquatic? Was it something that your family was like, this is awesome? Or were you like, fuck these guys, I need to know about The Life Aquatic experience? Did they bring you on? Did they pay you guys to coach the cast? Like, what was it? Tell me.
Oh man, I love Wes Anderson, and one of my favorite actors is Bill Murray, of course, because he's so unpredictable, and just love his passion and his acting abilities, of course, and just his spontaneity in general in life. I should have worn my Life Aquatic t-shirt, I guess. I did like it. I think that back in those days, we had reached out at one point to say, hey, listen, if you need information, background info, whatever, we're happy to provide it. And unfortunately, by that time, they had already been pretty far down the production. We had only learned of it late in the production cycle. So
that's kind of annoying.
Yeah, I mean, it's a bummer. I would have loved to have been, somehow involved in it. Just because it's such a fun movie. Our interns never had Glocks and still don't. But that would be a bad thing. But it's always an honor to be remembered, and whether it's a parody or not. So yeah, I thought it was fun.
I'm watching it tonight for sure. I'm just letting you know.
We're still looking for that shark, by the way.
At the end, we always love to ask our guests a speed round. It's 4 questions. Think about them. Usually just whatever your gut tells you, answer it however you like, long or short. If you could live anywhere in the world, where would it be and why?
Gosh, there's so many places I haven't been to yet, and so many places I love that I have been to. That would be my soul, my brain and my soul are in conflict all the time. I love the Mediterranean and the south of France because to me, emotionally speaking, that was the kind of the birth of our eternal curiosity of the ocean in a small place called Sanary-sur-Mer. And I love going back there all the time. It's a very familiar place.
Second question.
Yeah.
What are you most scared of?
Human beings. People are amazing, and they're also their own worst enemy. We are intelligent creatures, but do we have the wisdom to make the right decisions?
No, we do not. What is your biggest regret?
My biggest regret is always not spending more time with the people I love.
Yeah, that's a big one. And I think I know the answer to this, but maybe, we get a lot of answers that are unpredictable here. What makes you happiest?
That's easy. Aside from my dog or my family, being immersed in the ocean, away from everything, not having a care in the world, just experiencing, just absorbing. It feels like...
I love how it went dog, family, ocean. That was an interesting...
Dog, family, ocean. Yeah, exactly. Animals, family, ocean.
Fabien, thank you so much for being on the show. I truly enjoyed this conversation. Oh, Fabien Cousteau.
Is that your French accent?
It's really bad. But man, what a cool dude.
I'm a fangirl for sure.
You are? Oh, well, I'm a fanboy, I guess, too. Thank you for listening. No Fixed Address, the world's most extraordinary people, is presented by Matador Network.
Subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts. We release new episodes every other Thursday.